Hello and welcome to Biz Buzz with Bruno, presented by Mads Theater. We have a very, very special show today. We're talking to my close personal friend, star of stage, screen, voiceovers, television commercials, Broadway, cabaret, my close personal friend, Candi Milo, who's joining us from her lovely home in beautiful Los Angeles, California. Candi, thank you so much for doing this today. I'm so happy that we have you with us.
Thank you, Brew. I have to tell you, Michael, it is so wonderful to see you. I think of all the time that we've been friends and how much has gone on in the world, and I'm just so happy to be here.
I'm thrilled.
I'm so happy.
I'm so glad that this is our first time we've ever done this without having somebody in the studio. So it's just, I'm thrilled that, number one, I get to see you, which is wonderful, and that we get to play catch up because we really haven't seen each other during all the the COVID years, the dark years,
right?
And it's just really fun to play catch up. So for those of you people that may not know Candi by sight, you have probably heard her 1,000 times, because she is the most talented voiceover artist in all of Los Angeles. And she has done so many commercials that I'm sure you would recognize her voice in an instant. So Candi, first of all, tell us about your career in cartoons.
It's so funny. It was not something that I ever thought that I would ever do. And how it came about is very different. So when I have a lot of young people asking me, I want to get into voiceover. How do I get into voiceover? I say, well, I don't know how you get in. Let me tell you how I got in. And you'll have to have an agent at William Morris hip pocketing you. Died during the AIDS crisis. His parents take him and bury him immediately. We throw a big party at Carlos and Charlie's, and his assistant, who is now the voiceover agent, says, who was his assistant and is now a big voiceover agent, says, I'd like to represent you. To which I was like, I took her business card and I ripped it up and went, I don't want to do this. I want to sing. And just to make a long story a little bit longer, I went into their offices and I auditioned in a gigantic closet, like a closet that was like a storeroom. And it was reel-to-reel tape.
Wow.
And I know, and this is like 85, 86. And I booked every single thing that I had auditioned for. And what it was, Michael, was so easy and so easy for me to do this, and I kind of got into the groove of it that that was it, and that's how I got into it in my first cartoon. And just so you know, William Morris had me only for voiceover and commercials. Okay. During that time, I was there for 16 years. During that time, I was really prolific because at that time there was nobody that looked like me. And for commercials, it was a Sally Field kind of look-alike.
Right.
She wasn't doing Boniva yet because she was still a young woman, but she wasn't doing commercials. And so they were like, oh my God, we could get Sally Field. This would be great. But for cartoons, I had auditioned for the original Tiny Toons. Steven Spielberg presents Tiny Toon Adventures.
Right.
And I got to meet Steven Spielberg and did my audition, which, because you know me, was improv.
Right.
So we went in and I read the sides. And for the people that are watching that don't know what sides are, 4 sides make a whole script. So they give you your part, your side of the story. So I did my sides as Sweetie Bird, and then they just had me go off. And as I was walking out, Steven Spielberg popped his head out and he said, you are awfully good at this. You are really good at this. You should be doing this. And of course, I, instead of saying thank you, said, do people tell you look like Steven Spielberg? And because he loves actors, he just smiled and said yes, and then closed the door. But it was really quite amazing. And what it married for me doing voiceover is stand-up, improv, because it's all about comedy timing, improv, singing, and acting all in one. And what's kind of funny is I have Tiny Toons Luniversity coming out September 9th.
Oh, wow.
And I am not Sweetie Bird, but I am Granny, Dean Granny in it. So
see, Sally Field ages and Candi Milo has to age along with her.
I do age right along with her. Oh dear, I just don't know. So I'm the dean of the Luniversity. I think it's really cute. I think it's a really cute show. And you know, with all the stuff going on, we didn't know if it would be ever released. But
where is it? Where is that being released? How
it
is
is
being
Warner
released?
Brothers, so it'll probably be you know, HBO Max, or now it's Max. I don't know if you know, if there's even an HBO anymore on regular TV. I think it'll be streamed.
Right.
But we will get a release on that. We did 2 seasons. We don't know if we'll get any more, but it was that's kind of what it did. And I did Tiny Toons for a couple of years, and then you know, when that ended for me, they made my character a silent kind of a sight gag thing and concentrated on other characters. And then I went back into it about 4 years later, like I would say in 95, 90, like I did it from 89 to 91, and then it aired, and then 95 I hit back into it because nothing else was doing great. I started to get managers and bigger agents, and nothing panned out. So, you know, fates were telling me, you are a cartoon.
So when this first came down, had you been doing the Mervin's commercial? Because you were everywhere in that commercial.
And you know, that was a blessing and a curse, kind of like at what's happening today, because I have a Tide commercial that's been running.
Every time it comes
for
on,
4 years.
you yell, "Look, it's Candy! It's Tide!"
And so it was the same agency.
Okay.
And it was like concurrent. But I think in my career, before Mervin's took off, I was the Pearl Vision girl. I had done Southern Ford. I was doing other campaigns, but because I had done the ad lib of open at the end of it, and they made that sort of a hallmark of those commercials, I couldn't get any other commercials and any other work.
Wow.
The only other person, Michael, that had crossed out of commercials into television was Joey Zuzu. You remember the actor from Joey Zuzu?
Oh,
and he was on,
yes. Right.
And he was one of the only ones who was able to suspend disbelief, because on the show, and it was something that I had guest starred on, that I can't think of the name of it, that he played the same character.
Right.
That he played kind of a dumb guy who was really sure of himself. And I thought, you know, because you have Flo from Progressive, she can't. I mean, she writes and she's an improv person, but she doesn't do TV.
Yeah.
It's like Elvira.
Yeah.
She doesn't do TV.
Yeah.
She didn't. All she could do was it as her character.
Right. Personal gigs.
It was, so it kind of is the same way. Like the only way that I could break out of Tide, and I've done 2 or 3 other commercials since that aired, was that during COVID, I like to say during my COVID vacation, I lost a ton of weight and I got into great shape, and I didn't look like that woman sitting at the couch folding clothes, so I could get commercials. But I did a Der Wiener Schnitzel commercial.
See, we don't have those here. And I was going to say, people don't know, because it was a regional commercial, because Mervin's was a huge department store in, like, probably all over the West Coast, but it was nowhere in the Midwest, so it wasn't a national commercial, because there were no Mervin's around here. But
I think, did they have it? I don't even know if they had Mervin's or if it was called something else in Chicago.
It may be a different, yeah, it may be a different thing, but that
different market.
Yeah, right.
Because I think what it was regional. Like I know they had it in Minnesota.
Yep.
And I knew they had them in the sort of mid-South, but they didn't have them in Texas.
Right.
Because I wasn't making a lot of money making those until they got me a deal. And they got me a guarantee. And that's how I was actually, my daughter is the baby that Mervin's built. Paid for her birth.
There you go.
Okay, met my deductible. Mervin's did this. And so, yeah. And I think one of the great things about Tide, and I feel really blessed, is we shot it right before lockdown. We shot it in November of 2019. It aired in January. We were locked down and they played it. And if you recall in the commercial, nobody's in masks.
Right.
And we're not social distancing.
Right.
There are several generations. You can tell we all live together.
Right.
And it was very, very interesting. And I think while people were making commercials with masks and they were leaning into, the kind of the horrors where we all were, Procter and Gamble sort of stayed above it all. And we ran for all of COVID. And then, they weren't able to shoot any other commercials.
Right.
So
right.
they were kind of stuck with us.
They ran that baby.
They ran it. And
for something like that, for a national commercial, do they call you in for those, or does your agent send you in for those? And are there like a ton of other Candi Milos in the waiting room? Lookalikes.
Yes. And I'm trying to think how we did this Tide. I believe because it was before COVID, my agents submit me for the commercial. The casting director makes a call, makes a decision on who she's going to bring in based on what the client and then the director are after. And they said kind of Midwestern looking, so no sharp ethnicity, no sharp hipness, just like plain Jane, heavy improv. And so I went in and it was the longest audition process.
Wow.
I think I went in 5 different times.
Ugh.
And then they finally decided, and we shot it in Mexico City. So it was also a vacation.
Really? I didn't know that you shot it in Mexico City. Now, was it because it was is it cheaper to do that? Is that why they did it?
Well, you're going to hate this, but it's the truth. It's because there were kids on the set and they don't have Coogan laws in Mexico. So they kept 8 or 10 kids on the set, kept releasing them. There was no food. There was no drink.
My God.
Their parents were on the set. They kept releasing kids. And then they decided on this little girl, Paula, who was our girl, but she was like the last man standing.
Ugh.
And she remained in the commercial because she didn't complain.
Yeah. Well, she was adorable,
That's
too.
why she was
she was
adorable and so smart. And her comedic timing, she instinctively knew when that camera was going to flip to her. And, it was so great. And the guy that was in the commercial with me is Scott Parkin, and a wonderful actor and a really good friend.
So you knew him before going into this, right?
No.
You knew him. You didn't know him before the commercial?
No, and we met in the airport and everybody thought we were husband and wife.
Oh, yeah.
Because we hit it off so well. But he works with kids and he trains them in acting. And he said, this kid is a genius. And if she lived in LA, she would work every single day. And then COVID hit. And there was nobody coming into LA for any auditions. And I originally was going to record this. I have a front bedroom that is also has my desk, and in a closet has my recording studio. This during lockdown, I set up a studio, and then I have a wall that has a drape on it with another drape underneath. So I have drapes, I have lights, I have stands for my phone. In callbacks are always done on computer, and I have an inversion desk that I can pull up. And I that's what I spent 2.5 years doing, is auditioning from my house,
Wow.
and did all of the records. I did all of Space Jam from my house.
That was going to be my next subject, was talking about Space Jam, because that thing like took off like gangbusters. So tell
And
us a little bit about what was the road to that? How did that come to be for you?
so it's really serendipitous. I was set. My agent submitted me, and the casting director for voiceovers. It's very different than other casting directors.
Right, right.
We really are a small family. So they call, much as nobody wants to hear it, they call the top 8 agencies for voiceover. And if they can't find what they're looking for, then they'll go to smaller agencies, or they'll be looking for new people. And they are now, like the LGBTQIA community they are seeking that out. BIPOC community, they are seeking it, because what I say today is they know where to find me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if they wanted me,
Yeah.
they would just call for me.
Right.
Even though I have to audition, and I audition for everything. I audition for everything. Nothing, I don't say anything's beneath me. I audition for video games. I
Oh,
do
God, yes.
everything.
Yep.
And so I was sent in to audition in person, and this was January, right prior to when they started talking about COVID, because I have the pass from Warner Brothers on my
Oh.
refrigerator, and it could be January 20th. Honest to God. So
Wow.
I go in, and I'm auditioning to scratch characters,
Uh-huh.
because for the people who watch, they do the voices first, and then they
Right.
animate to the
Right.
voices. But celebrities are so busy that they can't do multiple sessions with celebrities. So we scratch it, they draw it, and then they have us come in and lay the voices down. So I was scratching. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but Wonder Woman. I was scratching everything. I was scratching Granny, but I had missed my audition because I was given the wrong day.
Oh, no.
So the casting person is saying, "Where the hell are you?" And I live 10 minutes from Warner Brothers, literally the
luckily,
Warner Brothers,
luckily.
with with the water tower,
Yeah,
like the
Studio
real
City.
Warner Brothers.
Yep.
I get in my car and I zoom. I mean, I brushed my teeth and washed my face. I have no makeup on. I have jeans. My hair is out to here because I've washed it, but I haven't blown it dry. And she was like, "Take a minute." So somebody goes in, and he's in there forever. And it's my friend Eric Bauza, who, does every voice, because he is Mel Blanc. Eric is Mel Blanc. And he said to me as I was walking in, he was walking out, he gave me a hug, and in my ear he said, "I've let them know that you're a goddess, so be a goddess." And I was like, great reminder. Don't walk in saying, "Oh, oh, oh." So I walked
Right.
in, and you know me so well. I walked in and said, "Happy to meet me, thrilled to meet me, pleasure to meet me." And LeBron was not there, but the director, Malcolm D. Lee, was there, who is an absolute delight. He was an absolute delight, and we just had a blast. And I kept saying I'd like to read for the male roles, that I really wanted to read for Marvin the Martian, because I was like, that's my favorite Looney Tunes
Oh,
character.
God, how much do we
So
love? Do a little for us.
Oh, goodness, I just don't know. I must look at my dog. But Eric did Marvin the Martian. But my sister and I used to watch that, just like slapping the couch.
Yep.
So
That's still to this day. They're timeless. Timeless.
they are absolutely timeless. And I'll talk about something that's coming out that is very timeless. So
Okay.
so I walk out, and I get the call, and they say, "You're gonna," like 2 weeks later, "You're gonna scratch Granny." And I was like, that is so great. That is so wonderful. I'll scratch Granny, which means I would go in and just lay the part down. They lock us down.
Right.
And my agent calls me and says they're going to postpone the session. And I thought, we're probably going to postpone the movie. We're so new at this. We don't know that people can animate from home. We don't know that people have built bays to edit in their houses. So and I had built the studio, and my agent called me 2 weeks after that. So about a month had gone by, and said, you are doing Granny. And I was like, fabulous. I have got a mic and everything. She went, you're going to need a better mic because you're not scratching it. You're doing it. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God. And that was Warner Brother Classic Voices, their team saying, Candi's doing all the Looney Tunes shorts and she's doing all the Looney Tunes shows. Warner Brothers wants to keep the voice the same for this movie. So we don't want you to put in a celebrity or another person. We want it to be the voice of Granny, who's been doing it now for 5 years.
So did you have the Granny voice before you did that, or did you just come up with it specifically for that?
No, I was doing Looney Tunes shorts.
Right.
And a good friend of mine, Jack Fletcher, was casting and voice directing for that. And I've known him long enough, Brew, that he knew me from stand-up. He knew me from singing and being live in nightclubs. And he was like, she's got this rubbery voice. Let her just listen to it, and I'll bet she can do it. And I had to audition, and they were like, oh my God, it's you. And now Pete Brownguard and Alex Kerwan and Jack Fletcher, we're all friends because we just also ended Looney Tunes shorts. There'll be no more made from that. So I had been doing it, which is why when I auditioned to Scratch, they were like, let's bring Candi in and see. And they brought everybody in. I think they saw 150 women to do Granny. All shapes, sizes, colors, everything.
Well, yeah, because it's all just voices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were trying. And so the only celebrity that we had was Zendaya did Lola Bunny. She was the only one that replaced a real voice actor, but everybody else were real voice actors. We were all, which was great. And for Space Jam 2, it was the first time Granny had spoken. And Zevohanian, who is the one of the producers, said he was instrumental in making the scenes where Granny spoke and wasn't just on the sides going, yay! So she had some pivotal scenes, and it was great. It was really great fun. And as soon as they said, you got it, I was like online buying computers and I have a really expensive microphone. But how wonderful the voice community is. I called a studio that I work at a lot. And my friend Devin Bowman, I put him on my iPad on FaceTime and showed him the space. And he said, this is what we record you on. And we do a lot of Warner Brothers shows. You need this microphone. Call this company. Tell them you're our friend. You need to get an interface because it's not USB. It won't go into that. So he was like, you want to get either this or this. And I was like, hot damn. And I built this. I live right near a Bed Bath and Beyond, and I bought the last of the moving blankets, and I needed one more. And so instead I bought a Tempur-Pedic mattress and was hammering it. I walked into a hardware store. I had a hammer. I didn't have any nails. All they had was 6-inch roofing nails. So I just want you to know my landlady is going to be thrilled.
Absolutely
thrilled when she sees the interior of that closet with like holes in it. But that was it. We prepared for lockdown. I had done Kinky Boots during that time, and we ended the Sunday before they locked us down on Monday.
Wow.
We
So
closed.
when did they actually release it? Do you remember when they released it?
They released Space Jam in 2021 in July. So about a year, because part of that animation, which is why some people didn't like it. If you ask every kid, they loved it. You ask their parents, they were like, it wasn't Michael Jordan. And I'm like, let it go, dude. Your kids loved it. They released it the next year because it should have taken longer to do the animation, but they did a great portion of that show in CGI, which is very easy. It's all computer programming. It's very easy to do. Once you put down the template, the computer does the work for the antics and the gags. And so we were recording all of 2020, but into 2021, I was still recording in late May and June, redoing voices ADR after picture is up. I was recording some stuff where maybe what I said was too salty.
Well, no, really?
I know.
So,
and they had some stuff where they had to take out, she was holding a martini glass and shaking and handing drinks to people, and they didn't want her to be a bartender during halftime. So they took that out, and we had to redo a line here or there. So it took about a year after, I would say a year and a half after the audition, they released the film, July.
So what's it like for you when, it obviously takes a longer time than a lot of other projects, when you finally see the finished product and knowing that you had your own little closet that you did your part in, and then seeing it done as an entire movie. And like you say, things that you had done were obviously left on the cutting room floor, or it was changed so many times. Like, did I do that, or did she do that scene, or what did I say? What's it like for you when you actually see the finished product for something like that?
Well, first of all, Bruno, we voice actors were invited to the red carpet.
Right. I remember that. Yep.
Never happens.
Yeah.
They don't invite because the whole thing was like this veil of secrecy. They didn't want you to see the people, and it breaks. But they invited us, and so we all went to watch the premiere of it, which was the first time we all saw it. And I turned around. I brought Gabby. She was my +1, and we were turning around to look at all my friends' faces as we saw our characters on the screen. It was marvelous because you had invited guests, but you have NBA players there, you had WNBA players there, you had, and everybody was laughing like they were 5 years old. And it's just something to behold. And honestly, because I did it so long ago, I would forget that I did that scene.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd be like, oh my God, that's funny. That is really funny. And I think out of everyone, I was the only female voice actor that wasn't a celebrity, Zendaya. I was really the only lead tune that was female. And to see them make it a fully fleshed out character, it was everything. And it has led to more work as Granny, and more work with Warner Brothers, and more work. It's been a great ride. It really has been.
Excellent. So cool. We're going to take a short little break now because we have some video footage from the Verona High School's production of Cinderella. So we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back in a couple of minutes.
The show is Cinderella, and it is a more modern take of what the original casting or show is. So it's everything that you've seen before in Cinderella, plus a little bit more revolution and modernization.
The music is also phenomenal. Miss Thorpe is the music director, and she does an incredible job making sure everybody's pushed to do the best that they possibly can, and everybody sounds amazing. The pit orchestra is going to be phenomenal.
First of all, this show is just absolutely beautiful. The costumes and the creativity and some magic. We just changing into that ball gown, seeing that live theater.
I guess just like kind of expect not the exact same story as a Disney movie, just because it is a little different.
This is like a different take on the classic version of Cinderella that everyone knows. This Cinderella she is strong, she's powerful, she wants to change the world, and she's determined to figure out how, and she just kind of happens to get a guy in the process. Like,
And it's fun. We're all having fun. It's very fun to watch. We like it.
Our show is going to be October 5th, 6th, and 7th. At 7 p.m. and a 2 p.m. matinee on Saturday. It is going to be performed at the Verona Area Performing Arts Center at 234 Wildcat Way, Verona, Wisconsin. You can get your tickets at vhs.vbotickets.com.
And it's on my bucket list to play one of the evil stepsisters in Cinderella. I will do it. I swear that I will do it before I go. Because I have to sing that song. I remember listening and watching Pat Carroll, who was a comedic genius. A comedic genius. And Alice Ghostley. Come on. Yeah, brilliant. So go and see Cinderella, support our community theaters, and I'm sure it'll be an incredible production. And their theater is beautiful. Oh my, Candi, you should see these theaters that they're building in these high school auditoriums. They're state of the art. They're beautiful. Thank God finally we're getting support, that they're building theaters and making them into places that are really showcases for the up and coming. The kids, the teenagers are doing incredible stuff around the school. So
well, and I think it's important that we give them a beautiful place to learn and to grow, because out in the real world there's no places to fall flat on your face. There are no more backlots. There are no more places where you could do a variety show. There isn't.
Right. And speaking of the backlot, what a great segue. So way back in the day, there was a venue called the Backlot of Studio One, which was in the famous Studio One in Los Angeles, and it was this really very, very cool cabaret show lounge, where you name it, everybody who was anybody in like the 80s and early 90s performed there, and they would do a Monday Night Live, which was a variety show for up and coming people. And so you get a chance, because on a Monday night, a lot of people were working on the weekends. You'd have a gig and you didn't have a chance to actually see all your friends performing and stuff. So they would do these Monday Night Lives, and that is where I met the first time the lovely and talented Candi Milo. And she was this unbelievable, talented, funny, incredible singer doing her act. And I was lucky enough to get hired to be an MC and to do comedy. And we instantly hit it off.
Really, truly. I said to Gabby, her first gift when I was pregnant with her was you had her name made in pillows.
Yep.
And and she was like, I remember you showing me these, because I told her I was going to be working with you today. And she was like, I remember seeing those. And I said, they're in storage. They're in your box.
Oh, wow. You still have them. Wow.
I still have them.
I
still have them. And she will be 32.
Shut up. Shut up.
Michael,
that's okay, because
how is she?
I know. That's okay, because I'll be 68 in 2 weeks. So there. I know. We were babies. We were babies.
I will be 63, and I don't care who knows it in January. I don't care. I mean,
I know.
those of us, and you, we lived through 2 pandemics.
Yes, indeed.
One in the 80s that took all of our friends.
Yep.
And
Sadly.
One now that took a lot of my friends.
Yep.
And so I'm happy every day I wake up and I'm not dead.
Yeah,
that's
me too.
what I say.
Yeah, me too.
I'm grateful. I think, somebody was like, oh, and I said, well, I think the big deal about aging is that people don't, the big deal is, well, then the opposite sex or the person you're attracted to won't find you attractive because you're older. And to that I say, I don't care. I am so beyond that. I think I got paid a very lovely compliment from a young man. And when I said I was 62, and more than a half. 62 and 3/4. Remember when you were like, I'm
Yes.
9 3/4.
Yes.
I'm 8 3/4. So I'm like 62 and 3/4. He said, oh my gosh, you don't look like you're in your 60s. And I said, I'm going to thank you for saying something kind, but I am. And I look it because this is what it looks like. So if we can stop saying that I look young
Yep.
as if I'm going for that.
Yo.
I'm not. Oh wait, my ear fell out. Wait, what? Say what? I'm not going for looking younger. I'm going for being well
Right.
and having as much fun as I possibly can.
Amen, sister.
That is my goal. I just want to have fun. So yes, she's going to be 32.
Wow. And she
know,
is
that
your
was a
mini
long-
me. I mean, watching her over the years.
She really is.
It's like when I see you when I first met you, and I see her growing into the fantastic woman that she is, and it's like, oh my! It's like you cloned her. It's amazing.
And I said, she works with Michael Orland, who everybody was
love Michael Orland.
was this unbelievable musical director, and he had come into Monday Night Live at the back lot through Rosalind Kind. He was her, and we all adopted him and fell in love with him. He's still a very close friend of mine. He lives very close to me, and Gabby works with him, and she has a much better voice than I do. I like to say, because she didn't have my father, she had me. But I think, and so meaning that she was nothing but encouraged. Like I encouraged her to do this. I never said she shouldn't. I never told her she needed a backup job. I never did anything like that, because I think what you and I, successfully aging in place, have figured out is that it all fucking works out.
Right.
It all works out. It's all going to happen as it's supposed to happen. It doesn't mean you don't have to kick in and make it happen.
Right.
But when you get to the point where you have a bruise on your forehead from banging it against a wall, then go where your canoe is taking you. I was laughing with you as we were kind of prepping for this a few days ago, and I said, if I had stayed as an actor only and pushed and pushed and pushed, or stayed on Broadway and pushed and pushed and pushed, I probably could have had very successful, but I was banging my head against the wall. And then I went, oh, I'll just go do this and I'll go do that. And I've kind of had this canoe flowing career where, yes, now 99.9% of my gigs are voiceover, but I tested for the Mayan Lopez and George Lopez show to play his ex-wife, and I'm still acting, and I've written a book, and it's like you just keep being creative and hoping you get paid for it.
Right.
It just, you cannot decide what it's going to look like, what success looks like.
Exactly. And when I talk to kids, and and they're asking me about my career and the very thing that I've done.
Oh my God, you were so funny.
It's like I always tell them, don't ever say no to something. Even if you think it's beneath you, it's not beneath you, because you never know who you're dealing with or who that person is that hired you, or it's going to give you a skill that you thought you would never use again, and you're going to get work someday. It's all going to come around to you. So if it's something, granted, if you can't, ride a horse or jump out of an airplane, you're not going to say, yes, I can do that. But if it's somebody that says, I need help on props, I need help doing, costumes, I need help selling tickets, I need help on co-producing or stage managing or anything in the arts, just, suck it up and buttercup and take the job, because you never, ever know where it's going to lead you.
The greatest trained actors, I believe, on the planet came out of Steppenwolf, Chicago. Because it was a theater company, where the biggest stars in the world took tickets, and the biggest stars in the world starred in their productions and wrote stuff. And, you kind of say, I'm exactly with you. I turn down nothing.
Right.
I mean, I just don't. I have ideas, and, I have had downturns in my industry, and I've gotten into meditation. And one of the greatest things that Deepak Chopra says is the greatest disservice you can do to yourself is have an idea of what success looks like. I have so many friends that are incredibly talented that had to give up show business, that had to do something else because they never made it. And I said, every day that you were able to put on your gown or your wig or your drag and go do what you wanted to do was a success. I'll tell you why you're not successful. You're not in show business anymore.
Right.
You quit. You didn't quit while you were ahead.
Yeah.
You did anything you're telling yourself. So my idea of success is if I make myself laugh 3 times a day, I am successful. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
If I am successful if I can make myself laugh 3 times a day.
Absolutely. And if
Truly.
I could make
And-
somebody laugh 3 times a day, that's also my successful too.
Yes. And I think if you give joy, if you give comfort, if you give hope,
Yep.
something that I say to young people, and you know this because you came from another state and you did it. And I came from San Jose, Northern California, all by myself at 19 and worked steadily and went to auditions and stood in line for hours on end. I say, why not you to young people?
Yep.
Give me the reason why it's not you. Why not you? Why not you? Why not you?
Exactly.
It's got to be somebody. Why can't it be you? This is like nepotism is only alive and well, Michael, on social media. There is no nepotism. They can't get you in. Any Brolin, anybody that is snuck in has been studying acting for years. Yes, somebody took a chance on them and gave them the audition, but they had to get the job
Right.
on their own.
Right.
And
You can
I
always
mean
have a
that.
door open for you, but it takes your talent to walk through the door and to make it work. That's the part that's crucial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that goes for anything.
Right.
That's why I think it's important for actors not to separate themselves from crew
Right.
and
Oh, God,
and
yes.
support staff, that
Yep.
you all do your rap parties together when you're young.
Yep.
I think these lovely theaters also are a great way for the school to make money by renting them out,
Mm-hmm.
by encouraging young people at the school to take tickets during an outside event. And I just think that it's very important because we don't have our backlot days, which was,
Right.
come on, that
Yeah.
band.
Oh, my. Oh,
We had folks, we had a 3-piece band that would only take breaks when the comics came on.
right.
And you learned how to host, you learned how to move a mic,
Yep.
you learned how to keep a show going, you learned how to handle hecklers, you were practicing your music. They didn't pay us a dime.
Right. Right. So speaking of, of pulling ourselves up from the bootstraps and our humble beginnings, you are also now an author of the of the wonderfully charming and fascinating book "Surviving the Odd," written by the talented Candi Milo.
Yeah.
Not a childhood for the faint-hearted. So, how did this come about, my dear?
I had always told this story. I will tell you that I used to do characters and tell this story in like my poignant stand-up. To quote Val Pappas, God love her, like I would tell the story of how I grew up. And I remember Mitzi Shore telling me, don't talk about that crazy house stuff, which is what she called it, in your act, because people don't believe it because it didn't happen. So they don't do it. And I said, it did happen. So one day I was with a brand new manager, Rick Bernstein, rest his soul, and told him this story. And he said, oh my God, write this out like you're telling me at a cocktail party. And I wrote it out and we sold it to Hallmark. Hallmark sold it to Showtime. And I forget who was the president of Showtime, but we met with the president of Showtime and they took my life story and whitewashed it. So my father was a very successful nightclub performer and stopped being a nightclub performer when television came on because nobody went to nightclubs anymore. They could watch a variety show and see performers on TV. So he opened the first care home, boarding care home for people with mental disabilities and
Yes,
and
Dad.
my dad, and for emotional and mental disabilities because Ronald Reagan, who was governor, had decided to balance the state budget by closing 21 state mental hospitals, mostly up in Northern California, but definitely Central California and some in Southern California. And they put them all out into the street. So my dad opened this house, but he didn't have enough money at the beginning to get our family a separate house. So for the first year, we lived in a converted fraternity house 1 block away from San Jose State University with, at the beginning, 12 mentally challenged and emotionally challenged adults. But over the course of the 16, 18 years that my dad ran it, probably 450, 500 residents came through, some of them never getting better, some of them moving on to independent housing. And I had this, so I decided to take my narrative back and write the story from my point of view, like what had happened. And I had originally done it through the music because that's how I first enter the world, is that I enter by playing songs from every year that the house was there, that I lived there, and I wrote. And then I did it by holidays, that I was like, let's have for this year, and then this year we're going to talk about my dad loved Arbor Day. Don't even get me started because there's nothing that people in captive housing love more than a freaking holiday.
Yeah.
Where there are cookies
Yep.
and crafts. So I wrote this book with an eye on getting my story out there. And then I had, a manager get me with a publisher. I'm with a very small indie publisher in London who took a chance on it. And we used all of her people to edit it. And we used all British people. They're out of London, New Haven. And somebody did my cover, and my cover makes me laugh. And the story, which is, it's not for the faint-hearted, but you have to know that I came up in a family with two minimally educated parents. My mom went to finishing school. My dad went to professional children's school in New York. They were born to be workers, and it is what you did. This was like our dry cleaners. This was like our bodega. We had this halfway house, and what most people don't know is that when you have 5 kids in a halfway house, one of them, especially if she's nuts like I am, is going to have problems making friends. It's going to have problems. I couldn't bring people home. I couldn't have sleepovers. I couldn't do this because at the beginning our home was Milo Arms, and then we moved next door. So that was another 5 years of that. But when it's a family business, Bruno, it never sleeps.
Right.
So
Right.
I couldn't have a really normal life, but I wanted to tell this story, and my hope is that one day it'll be picked up for production, like somebody will make a movie. I'm in the process of trying to write a musical. I'm in the process of thinking about just doing a live reading of it, like Candi Milo would do a live reading of it, kind of on lithium herself, and filming it for YouTube,
Yeah.
or bringing
Yeah.
it to Madison and saying,
Yeah.
like an hour and 10-minute reading of, and then stepping out of character and commenting. It's something that I've wanted to put together and do. And that's why I did it, because I think what my dad tried to do, I don't know how successful he was. I know that he was beloved by our residents and he loved them. And I think he did a really good thing. And I think that he was this puddle in a sea of trouble in Northern California. We were a sea of trouble. The stats of what happened to the homeless population, the official stats are all a lie, because I researched my book from the San Jose State Public Library through students' papers and what they had written at the time. And in the county of Santa Clara, there was something like 7,500 beds. And in a 5-week period, they released 125,000 mental patients throughout the states.
Hello.
And I know. And so people who had boarding houses with normal people who weren't licensed were taking them in 3 and 4 to a room and charging money and stealing money. And, when people talk about how bad Goodwill was and how bad like the Salvation Army was and how bad these halfway houses were. And I was like, dude, you weren't there. People who were trying to help were literally underwater, and and it was the Wild West because there were no rules. I like to think, Michael, that my sister Sharon and I are the reason there is a rule that you have to be a nurse to dispense medication. Because when our house opened, I was 8, my sister was 6, and we were dispensing medication.
Oh, yeah.
She couldn't read. But my mom would set it up where you had the bottles behind the Dixie cups.
Yeah.
Just so you know, the Wild West. So when somebody says, the guy that heads up Goodwill makes $3 million a year, he fucking should. That's all I'm going to tell you. He should. That Goodwill was the first company that hired the mentally disabled,
right,
and differently enabled to repair things and taught them a trade. I don't want to hear about it. Yes, it's very different now. And yes, stores, the women steal. That I take up for my childhood. My dad said I wanted to give something up for society. And I was like, does it have to be my childhood? Could I just have a date pick me up at the door without 40 people waving out of the windows like this? Like Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies.
There you go. Y'all come back now.
You hear?
So do yourself a huge favor and
thank you, Michael.
Go and pick this up, because it is funny, it's heart-wrenching, it's poignant, it's important, and it's
true.
beautiful, and it's a true story, and it's brilliantly written, and it's available on Amazon.com, right?
Yes.
Candy?
And Barnes and Noble and Walmart. It's everywhere, but I think Amazon delivers it quickly, and then I believe that Amazon offers you a discount off of the published price.
Wonderful.
So you'll get it cheaper than buying it at Barnes and Noble. But you go to your books seller, or you can go to my website, candymilo.com, and click a link and buy it there too. I don't get any money. Believe me, I only get it if you buy it, period. My publisher gets all the money.
Well, make sure you get it. What the bottom line is, make sure that you get it.
Thank you for getting it.
Absolutely. Oh,
as my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Should we sing a little Up the Ladder to the Roof? I just feel like we should be singing Up the Ladder.
We should be singing Up the Ladder to the Roof. We absolutely should.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off like I do.
No. I was going to say one last thing before we go. I want to talk just a little bit about how this whole actors and writers strike, which has affected so many people, more than just actors and writers, because everything trickles down, so that there are so many people out of work now, because you don't realize that there are costumers, there are makeup artists, there are craft services, there are hairstylists, there are people,
set builders.
Yeah.
Like
all those people are now out of work.
Out of work.
How did that affect you?
Well,
personally?
At first, so that the viewers understand, in the Screen Actors Guild, there are several contracts, much like Actors Equity. When you do a production, there are different contracts. So I function under the voice actors contract, voice actors television. So I initially am not affected. I can make commercials. Commercials is a separate contract. I am not effective, except Warner Brothers is not making any cartoons. They've stopped production on everything. So there are no auditions. People are not wanting to cross the picket line. They're not making commercials because nobody wants to spend $1 million, $2 million to have a brand new commercial that will run during a rerun.
Ah.
So everything has slowed down, and I want to explain so that I know what you see on TV are very big stars and people who starred in television shows showing you their residual checks.
Right,
But I will
right.
put it into perspective. Disney Plus is $139 per year if you do it annually. I made from Disney $97 last year. Last year. So I stopped Disney Plus, Netflix, and I will give you an idea. I'm in my 60s. I'm trying to do projects that will take me through my 70s and my 80s. So we are paid by residuals. Residuals doesn't come out of your viewers' pockets. Residuals are profit sharing. If the movie tanks, we all don't get a dime. If it does really well, we've worked for minimum so that we can share, so that when the producers get paid from the people airing it, then what has happened is that Netflix has McJobbed us. So now Netflix is producing, but they also own it.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to pay any rates because they produced it. And that's what HBO and all these studios and Disney said, oh my gosh, if we produce it, if we make it and we air it, why should we pay anybody? So what I want you to know is that I did Space Jam and I made X amount of dollars, and we're going to call it $100. I made it to make it. And over 2 years, the percentage that I've made as an actor who worked 10 days on a feature film that made $170 million its first weekend. If I was paid $100 and I was paid more, but if we do that, I've made $1.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have made on residuals 10 times the base pay of $100. I should have made $1,000. So I should be seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in residuals from Space Jam. And I've seen $3,000 in 2 years. So what you're doing is saying, hey, Cand, when you're 65, you have to go work at Starbucks because we're not going to hire you. We can't find any residuals. We're not going to pay you. So I don't have any backup. We pay a fortune for healthcare, which the producers, it's their health plan. So it's one of those things where we're frightened, but I know everybody so that you know, if we make you hurt now in your enjoyment of television and film, if we do it right and we say stay strong and we're all prepared to go till February, we won't ever have to do this again. Because what the studios are saying is they can't find the money. Not that they're not making it, that they can't find it. So what we're saying is put a system in place, because you can tell when I give my daughter my password, Netflix, and I'm cheating you out of $15, I know you can find how many views Space Jam or all the shows that I've done for Netflix and Amazon. So I just want everybody to know I feel positive. I don't cross picket lines. I had one live job in August, and it was ADR. I went in for the last Tiny Toons session, and I was the last performer to be in Cartoon Network Studios, the building. They've sold it. Wow. Zaslav, who runs HBO, is selling off all the properties of Warner Brothers, because his job as a venture capitalist is to break it apart and sell it so that it's no more, that it exists only in office buildings. Yep. Only executives will have, so everything else will be online. And that job will not pay me residuals because it was for work already performed. They're just paying me for my time. So in the month of August, I didn't have a job that will pay me a residual. So it's a very real thing. And we need the public's support. I know that Adam Driver has been out there saying the right things, and I'm just trying to let people understand that we're not millionaires. The people who are true millionaires are the people who are the executives at studios, not the actors. Truly, not the actors. That's why you have celebrities out there striking.
Right.
15 years ago, before streaming, 15 years ago, I was doing really well and was really happy. And now it's like, my God, I've got to find some income revenue that pays, because there's nothing. And I do have another film. I just realized I gave you a little thing that is coming out, but I can't, because we don't have a release date. I can't tell you what it is or who I am, but I'm praying that it does as well as Barbie. For Warner Brothers.
Boy. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
that they tried to sink because they didn't want the rest of the movies that they have to pay for to come out, and it's done over $1 billion with a B, with a Bruno.
With a Bruno and a Bobby billion.
A Bobby billion. So I'm hoping that the next movie does well, but it probably won't come out until after the strike, because what I think will happen is that they'll break apart Warner Brothers, and then somebody like a Spielberg will buy the properties and then just put them up, and hopefully. But please, everybody, say whatever little prayers or think good thoughts for the actors and the writers. We are literally not being paid at all.
Right.
We're not being paid. If I go to the Screen Actors Guild website, there's nothing in my residuals. There's nothing. So I have savings. I'm okay.
Good. And on that up note,
but think a good thought, because if we do it right,
that's right.
We don't ever have to. We don't ever have to do this again. And I feel really strongly, because when the studios have to hire a publicist, they're not doing the right thing.
You got it. Candi, thank you so much. I adore you. I love you. One of my dearest and oldest friends.
I love you, Michael.
I can't wait to see you in person. When we get out there this year. Again, thank you so much. Pick up Surviving the Odd. See her movies. Listen for her commercials. And support the arts. And thank you so much. And have a wonderful rest of your day. And go Bucky, 7 to 7 Badgers.
Woo!
Take care. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jim. Love you. Thank you, Candi. Mwah. See you next time.
Bye, guys.